Ready? Good evening. Welcome to the City of Sugar Land City Council meeting for Tuesday, September the 5th. Before I open it up to the first thing, which is public comments, I want to introduce our new city secretary, Robin Linio. Robin, would you please stand? And I want to thank Natalie Serrano. Natalie has been pinch hitting since March. In essence, she's been doing two jobs, that of the city council liaison and that of the city secretary. So I want to recognize Natalie and thank her for the contribution. Thank you very much. And now we're going to go down. We're going to move to the invocation. William's going to give us the invocation, and then we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, if everybody will just take a moment and bow with me. Father, we come to you tonight very, very grateful for this beautiful city, very grateful for our neighbors, very grateful for the opportunity to move this city in the direction that is best for all of us. Father, we ask for your wisdom, we ask for your patience, and Father, we ask for safety, we ask for our health. Father, we're here in this together, and we're going to see it through together. We love you. In your son's name we pray. Amen. Amen. And now, I have three young ladies I got to put my hat on for a moment. So these young ladies are from Fort Bend County Fair, right? So we have Lauren, Abby, and I'm going to mess it up, Elena. I was close. I got the E right. Okay, I got the E right. So they're going to lead us in our pledge, which I'll take my hat off in a moment. They're going to lead us in our pledge, both our American, to the American flag and the Texas flag. Is that correct? One of you is going to take the lead. Well, where is it? No, she told me not to worry.
She's president of Fort Bend County Fair this year. So.
This way.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Awesome. Are you going to say something? Nothing. All of this, nothing.
And so, each of y'all go through. Tell us what you're doing. On the committee, raise animals.
Scoot over that way. Okay. There we go. Okay. Hi, y'all. My name's Abby, and I go to Clements High School. What we do at Junior Livestock Volunteers is we basically help set up and tear down with the fair and help assist with tag-ins over the summer during the fair time season.
We basically help out wherever we can in everything and anything they need us to do. Sorry, I'm Lauren. I am from Dulles High School, and I'm currently raising a goat and a pig for the county fair.
Well, my name is Eliana Cruz, and I'm also from Clements High School. And at Junior Livestock Committee, you'll see us in the arenas, helping everybody out. And so if you ever look down there, you'll probably see one of us or one of our other committee members.
30 of them.
Yeah, 30 of them.
Come down for a photo. public comment. Anybody that would like to speak on one of the agenda items that does not have a public hearing is welcome to come down to the front. Everybody will have 3 minutes. We'll waive the 10-person limit. So anybody would like to speak? I've got one person. I'll call them down in just a minute. Susan Rickley. Susan? Susan Ridley.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I am requesting for the city to reconsider listing our complete addresses in the minutes. This information stays online forever. I believe there's a security risk having our addresses out there. I believe just listing our subdivision is adequate. As we all know, there are some crazy people out there in the world. My other comment has to do with, I appreciate the information provided regarding the donation for the animal shelter. It's great to see donations coming in, especially during the uncertainty of the new shelter. I looked at the April 2023 minutes for the same thing, for the summary of the donation, and noticed that the balances in the funds were listed. They were not listed on this most recent summary for this 6-month period. In the future, can you list the ending balances for both the general fund of donation and the funds for the new shelter? While providing that information, can you also provide details of the expenses that have been paid for the previous 6 months? Last but not least, can this detail be presented at the next AAB meeting on next Wednesday, September 13th? Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Susan. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on one of the agenda items? Hearing none, we're going to move to item number 3, the consent agenda. Consent agenda is going to be taken all in one motion, unless a council member wants to pull an item, at which time we'll take that separately. Do I have a motion? Got a motion by Jacobson, got a second by Kermally. Do those this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council members. Item number 4, 4A, donations. Consideration of an action on acceptance of monetary donations in the amount of $14,221 for the care and adoption efforts at the City of Sugar Land Animal Shelter and for residents and community-wide animal welfare education efforts. And we have with us Ms. Cindy King, our Animal Services Manager. Cindy.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Animal Services receives donations throughout the year, not only residents, non-residents, and businesses, but also nonprofit organizations. Since the last donation acceptance by City Council, Animal Services has received five donations over $250, totaling $12,250. And additionally, we've received 22 donations that were under $250, totaling $1,971. Of those donations, First Colony Swim Team selected Sugar Land Animal Services as the recipient of a percentage of their fundraiser for their annual fundraiser. Not only did they donate $10,000, but they also donated in-kind gifts for the animals. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here because tonight was the first night of practice, so they couldn't have representatives here for that. But additionally, we did have Ricky Rayburn, Venture Products Company, David Grundy, Karen Kelly Lindsay, and then the additional donations that were received. So the Environmental and Neighborhood Services Department, Special Projects Department, City of Sugar Land Animal Services Department recommends the City Council accept these animal services donations in the amount of $14,221.
Thank you, Cindy. Any comments, council members? Do we have a motion? Got a motion by Kermally, got a second by McCutcheon. You vote at this time, please. And it passed 7-0. Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
Item number 5, public hearings, 5A. Receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard on the proposed revised fee schedule. First consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land ordinance number 2314, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, adopting a revised fee schedule by amending Chapter 2, Article 5, Division 4, fees for various city services, and Chapter 5, Article 8, Division 3, rates and charges, Sections 5246 through 5265 of the Code of Ordinances, and other matters related thereto. And we have with us tonight Justin Mejorado, our Interim Director of Budget and Strategy. Justin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. How are you doing this afternoon?
Great.
So get my technology set up down here. So as you know, part of the annual process and guided by our financial management policy statements, we do an annual CPI adjustment to a vast majority of the fees. And the CPI index that we use for that is the Houston Woodland Sugarland MSA CPI. Initially, financial management policy states that the revised fee ordinance will be adopted at the beginning of the fiscal year and changes effective for all activity billed or generated on or after the effective date of the ordinance. So this year's annual CPI adjustment was of 4%. This is based on the April CPI for the Houston Woodland Sugarland area. Typically, when making these adjustments to the fees, we round a majority of them to the nearest quarter dollar. This allows for ease of administration and makes worthwhile the changes for those departments implementing the revisions on fee structures and things of that nature. We do take this CPI adjustment into consideration along with trends when we estimate revenues for the FY24 budget and 5-year forecast. So the financial management policy guidance on enterprise funds specifically states that fees shall be set sufficient enough to cover operating expenditures, both direct and indirect in nature, meet our debt obligations and debt service coverage, as well as provide sufficient pay-as-you-go capital funding and provide adequate levels of working capital. And I won't read all of these utility rates here and put everyone to sleep, but on average, we're looking at roughly a 5% increase on average across the board on residential rates here. On the commercial side, we're looking at an average of roughly 3.6% from the current rates. When you look at this, the proposed rates and an average estimated water and surface water usage of 10,000 gallons and 6,000 on the wastewater side, we come to roughly a $3 or 3% increase to your average residential water bill. So here, placing that bill alongside some regional and peer cities, we can see that demonstrated commitment to offering a manageable water bill here, falling below the average for these cities amongst this data set. Looking at our solid waste rates, the contract that we have with Republic on a 10-year term allows for yearly increases in the amount to the higher of 2.5% or CPI not to exceed 5%. This year's April CPI, which we use for the other fee adjustments, is 6.9%, so that limits us at that 5% increase, equating to 99 cents on the monthly tax bill, bringing us to $20.84 per month. The current rate of $19.85 will run through December 31st of this year, with the next year rate effective January 1. So at this time, Mayor, if you want to open it up for the public hearing.
Yeah, thank you, Justin. This time we're going to open the public hearing. Anybody that would like to speak on this particular agenda item is invited to come to the podium. Give me your name and your address, and you'll be given 3 minutes. Anyone? Second call. We're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. We'll move on to consideration and action. First consideration and action on City of Sugar Land Ordinance number 2314. Council members, question? Suzanne?
Thank you, sir. Justin, when was the last time we had an increase? Do you have a history for the last 2 years to show the difference?
On all general fees or just for the water utility?
Water.
Yes, we can pull that together for you.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Kamali. Do I have a second? Second. Got a second by Ferguson. Vote this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council members. Justin, I think you've got the next one.
Yes, sir. Got three.
Item number B, public hearing. Receive and hear all persons desiring to be heard on the proposed 2023 assessment for properties located in the enclave at River Park Public Improvement District. First consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Ordinance number 2316. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, approving and adopting the 2024 service plan, the 2023 assessment roll, and levying assessments for the 2023 calendar year for property located at the enclave at River Park Public Improvement District. Go ahead, Justin.
All right, so first a little background. On August 19, 2014, the City of Sugar Land approved Resolution 1432, authorizing the creation of the enclave at River Park Public Improvement District and the district's service and assessment plan. The district was created to finance improvements to the enclave at River Park subdivision. There are currently a total of 139 homes platted there. The PID is similar to a MUD, but has a little bit more limited authority and eliminates that extra layer of government. And additionally, this tract was not quite large enough to warrant the establishment of a municipal utility district. Additionally, some more information on the enclave PID. All buyers are required by law to be notified of the PID and the assessment at the time of closing. The assessment on properties there is not for new infrastructure or amenities or maintaining HOA facilities. By eliminating that initial layer of government with a MUD, you will see that the assessment is significantly less than what you would see in city MUDs in other areas of the city. Some more additional background. So the reimbursement to the developer for the initial infrastructure, the agreement was for $2.125 million. The developer has been reimbursed upon meeting requirements in the agreement as of January 2019. Just a reminder that infrastructure is not covered by city property taxes and not a city responsibility initially, but the infrastructure is conveyed to the city for further maintenance. The annual assessments on these properties will be used to pay debt service on the reimbursement, and the assessment will end with the repayment of the debt. 2023's proposed assessment is $340 per lot. This is a $90 decline from the 2022 assessment. These assessments are included and billed on the Fort Bend County tax bill. Looking at some historical and future anticipated assessments, we can see that the initial assessment back in 2015 was just over $1,100, and in the middle for 2023, we can see where we're at $340. As the annual debt service decreases, so will the annual assessments. As I mentioned earlier, that cost savings relative to MUDs here, we can see a comparison of the Telfair or MUD 137 and Bernie Road MUD to the enclave River Park. This information does use an average home value of $475,000.
Well, Justin, one of the other things, those other two districts have been in existence way longer than this PID's been in existence. So the PID's paying down the debt a lot faster than those MUDs are.
Yes, sir. Additionally, there was a notice of today's public hearing sent out to property owners in the PID. Also included in this mail was an additional letter that explained some additional information on the PID. So next steps for today, we'll be holding that public hearing on the assessment, and council will be making a motion on the first reading of the assessment ordinance. We'll be back for the second reading on September 19th. Mayor, if you want to go ahead and open up.
We're going to go ahead and open a public hearing on this particular item. Is there anyone that would like to, are there any public comments? Anybody from the audience? Second call. Go ahead and close the public hearing. First consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Ordinance number 2316. Council members, questions? Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
You got Kermali? Second by McCutcheon. Vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council members. Item number 6, ordinances and resolutions. 6A, first and final consideration. Consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Ordinance number 2311, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, amending the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget for the City of Sugar Land, Texas, to provide that the revised budget address funds relating to certain capital and operating budget matters, and that this amendment be adopted as the budgeted amount for those funds. Justin, go ahead.
Well, good evening again. And as you know, each year the budget is adopted through an ordinance each year. Any additional appropriations require City Council approval through an ordinance. Amendments are consolidated into one ordinance, with the final amendment being turned into the projections into the revised budget. Previous budget amendments for fiscal year 23 were back in February, approving the fiscal year 22 carryovers to fiscal year 23. So the objectives for tonight's item is first, as I mentioned, to formally appropriate previously approved budget amendments by ordinance, and then secondly, capture projection adjustments, which include capturing additional revenues, recognizing operating savings, adjusting for additional operating needs, and ultimately creating a more accurate position of the estimated year-end position. I'll do some quick high-level summaries of some of our major operating funds, and then we'll stop for any questions before council makes a motion on the item. We'll start off with the general fund. Revenues are anticipated $8.74 million higher than budget. This is driven by sales tax and interest income performance. Expenditures are increasing by $0.9 million, which is the net impact of recognizing some of those savings in operational areas and adjusting for needs in others. On the non-operating side, we're accounting for increases in the transfer out, and that's capturing property taxes to the airport for value over at the airport. We also have increases in miscellaneous, which adjust for increased cost and property and liability insurance premiums and deductibles. And then lastly, we're capturing the adjusted rebates to in-city MUDs with the supplemental tax roll information. The net impact of these changes result in an increase to revenues over expenditures of $7.84 million, leaving us a fund balance of $38.48, which is 14.1 over the policy requirement. On the debt service side, we do have an adjustment to revenue. This includes revisions to the property tax revenue estimates and interest income, resulting in a projected increase to revenues of $0.19 million. On the expenditure side, we do have a reduction to the projected debt service. This is driven by the results of actual bond sales compared to their planned estimates. Additionally, adjustments to the transfer to airport and MUD rebates are included. The net impact of these changes leaves us with an estimated ending fund balance of $8.9 million, which is 1.49 higher than the budgeted estimate and 6.14 million over the policy requirement. On the utility fund side, we do have revenue adjustments for the utility net to $0.73 million and include revised estimates for water, wastewater, and surface water revenues that more accurately reflect anticipated revenues. Additionally, included under miscellaneous revenues, we are capturing the sale of water rights, which are not typically budgeted initially each year. On the expense side, we have roughly $100,000 in adjustments to the operating budget. Net impact of these changes leaves us with an ending fund balance of $26.97, which is 0.63 higher than budgeted. Additionally, that operating reserve at 82%, so it's well above the minimum of 25%.
And Justin, I think we sold that those water rights to Dow. Is that not correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. On the airport side, the adjustment of $0.45 million in revenues for the airport fund include capturing additional interest income and those increased transfers from both the general and debt service funds. On the expense side, the net change of $1.96 million includes appropriating $2.1 million for the hangar acquisition in FY23. This was previously a planned FY24 project, but based on the closing date on the property, we've shifted that up to FY23. This is offset by some minor operating adjustments in debt service that is lower based on actual issuance versus planned. Net impact of these changes result in an ending fund balance of $7.72 million, which is being drawn down by $1.51 million, funding the cash purchase of the hangar. Operating reserves of 70% are well above the minimum of 25%. So looking now back at some of the capital project amendments that have been approved year to date, we have included the $1.437 million amendment to CPK 2001. In that includes $1.237 million in donations from the Cullinan Park Conservancy, adjusting both revenues and expenditures for Phase 2 of park improvements. Then we had a reallocation of project funding from the Ditch H Trail to First Colony Trail of $700,000. Additionally, the city received $55,000 in remittance from CNA Surety, which added to the project budget for contingency for the fuel tank replacement Phase 1. Additionally, an amendment was taken of $3.6 million to allow the 4B Corporation to purchase 6.88 acres adjacent to the Constellation Field, leaving room for future development opportunities. Additionally, there was a second donation from Cullinan Park Conservancy of $90,000, adjusting both for revenues and expenditures for the project. Additionally, an appropriation was needed to provide funding for unanticipated monitor requirements associated with the fuel tank replacement, adding an additional $21,000 to the project budget funded by interest income in the CIP fund. For CST 2202, there was an amendment for an additional $60,000 from CIP fund balance to fund materials testing, streetlight relocation, and a 4% contingency. And then lastly, there was a reallocation of funding within the airport CIP, moving $243,000 from CAP 1201 to CAP 2301. And at this time, the recommendation from staff is approval of the first and final reading of Ordinance 2311, amending the fiscal year budget.
Thank you, Justin. Questions of the council? I'll make a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. Second by Ferguson. Vote at this time, please. And it passed 7-0. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Mayor.
Item number 6B, first consideration. Consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Ordinance number 2313. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, adopting a unanimous settlement agreement, setting rates and establishing tariffs for the provision of natural gas service by C Energy LP within the City of Sugar Land, Texas, declaring this ordinance to be a final determination of rates, requiring acceptance by C Energy LP of those rates prescribed herein, and establishing an effective date. We have our City Attorney, Meredith Reedy. Meredith.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is a really quick presentation. Back in May, C Energy filed a statement of intent with the Railroad Commission wanting to raise their rates, wanting to get a $2.67 million revenue increase over the incorporated areas North, Central, and West Texas, a 47.3% increase over the current revenues, but minusing their actual gas costs, with a total 32.14 revenue requirement. So just 10 short days later, you filed a resolution and said, we don't like that idea, we're going to fight you. And we went back to our fine friends over at GCC, the Gulf Coast Coalition of Cities, and said, what can we do about this? We had our expert examine the different documents they provided, what their actual costs were to provide safe gas lines and service to our residents, and they negotiated a settlement that is less than what they asked for, but still will provide the income they need to maintain their infrastructure. So it goes from the 32.14 down to 27.9 million. They've agreed not to ask for another rate increase until their next review, so they can't come back in just a few months or a year and ask for another one. And it limits the increase to residential customer charge to $19.25. The charge is an average of $17 now, so each resident will pay additional $2.25 a month. That's what we got for them. And they do have to provide a one-time aggregate credit to the city of $101,000. They will also reimburse the Gulf Coast Coalition of Cities all the costs related to fighting this and doing the investigation. This is going in front of the Railroad Commission for approval on September 22nd, and it should be effective that day.
Questions? Council members? No, Sean?
Can you go back once? What happens to the one-time aggregate credit if we get the 101,000? Do we get that?
In theory, we get it, but you don't really get it.
We won't see it?
No, sir.
Anything else? Got a motion by McCutcheon. Do I have a second? Second by Lane. You vote at this time, please. And it passed 7-0. Thank you, council members. Thanks, Meredith. Item number 6C, consideration of an action on City of Sugar Land Resolution number 2328, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Sugar Land, Texas, adopting a City Council policy for a fostering unique neighborhoods reimbursement grant program using Sugar Land 4B Corporation funds and repealing resolution number 2003. John Soriano.
Howdy, City Council. Today, I'm here to recommend the approval of Resolution Number 2328, a resolution adopting a City Council policy for a Fostering Unique Neighborhoods Reimbursement Grant Program. This proposed program was workshopped with the Economic Development Committee, the EDC, in July, and at the August SL4B meeting, the SL4B Board of Directors voted unanimously to approve and recommend this proposed policy to City Council. And with that, let's get started. First, let's start with why. This is the life cycle of a city, which emphasizes the need for the city to reimagine, redevelop, and grow. According to this graphic, the redevelopment and growth of the city, path number 2, will involve rehabilitating and transforming our infrastructure and renovating our neighborhoods. Our capital improvement grant program plays a key role in empowering our HOAs, property owner associations, POAs, and recognized community groups to partner with the city in redeveloping and reinvesting into our infrastructure and neighborhoods. As it stands, the SL4B Joint Capital Improvement Project Grant Program is a capital improvement program available for HOAs, POAs, and recognized community groups. The program has an annual budget of $200,000 from the SL4B and provides a reimbursement funding for community enhancing public improvement projects. This is one of my favorite slides because this is a spotlight on a trailblazing project that was completed in fiscal year 23 from Sugar Creek Property Owners Association. They replaced signs at the Sugar Creek Office Park that were about 45 years old. They emphasized in their application that their signs had a dated look, and I think the modernization of these signs represents the many positive incremental changes that can happen from our stakeholders and that support the redevelopment of the city. That being said, the Joint CIP program has used 4B Corporation dollars to support redevelopment in a variety of ways, like replacing perimeter fencing, reviving community areas. You see on the right side of this slide is a dilapidated pool that hasn't been in use that's going to turn into a children's playground this October, and beautifying our neighborhoods and commercial areas. These are great examples of how economic development corporations, or our economic development corporation, is supporting the quality of life in the community. So you're probably wondering why change the Joint CIP program. The program started in fiscal year 2002, and with the city's trailblazing vision in mind, there's an opportunity to make small improvements to the program while also reframing it to meet the new vision. How can we, as the city, encourage and incentivize our neighborhood groups and property owners associations to reinvent and reimagine their spaces, their infrastructure, being obsessed with community and partnering with the cities on capital projects that make our citizens happy? Also, on a more practical level, in my experience doing outreach to the HOAs, most people don't recognize what Joint CIP or Joint CIP even stands for, as it's not a common acronym. So how can we better reframe this program with trailblazing and redevelopment in mind, especially with the new name? On this slide, there's some quick stats about the amount that the SL4B has contributed to projects through this program in the past. There's been about 42 projects totaling about $1.6 million in SL4B contributions to 20 different HOAs, POAs, and recognized community groups. This is equal to $3.6 million in total project costs, and the project types are outlined in the circle right there, with locative projects, meaning fencing, monuments, and signage improvements, projects that help define a location or space being the highest, followed by landscaping, lastly by parks and recreational projects. Now on this slide, you can see the number of projects categorized, the number of projects here. As you can see, landscaping has encompassed the largest number of projects during the last 20 years of this program's existence, followed by locative, and then followed by parks and recreation. That being said, I think it's time to trailblaze. How can the city encourage HOAs, POAs, and recognized community groups to trailblaze? Now, for the improvements, I wanted to kind of tell a story about the impact of what it means to frame a program. So typically on our program website, we've only included pictures of neighborhood walls and landscaping, which is why we may have only received certain types of applications for those projects. Last year, as the program administrator, I dedicated a lot of time and effort to conducting outreach to our HOAs personally, and encouraging them to apply to the program with some unique and creative projects that would be eligible for 4B dollars. When reaching out to our HOAs, I used the Brook Street Bridge, pictured on the top left, as a prime example of how a street improvement could be done more creatively and more impactfully using 4B dollars. As a result, many HOAs submitted some really creative and unique project submissions. We got the pool example that I went over before. We also got some bike lanes on one of our streets that one of our HOAs is partnering with us on, a project to, and an archery sculpture. This shows that there's definitely a desire to implement these creative types of projects. Also, to further reinforce that creative framing works, I'll use another city program, Great Homes, as an example. Here, the city provided a strong vision to our homeowners using professionally done home designs, and the homeowners went out and implemented this vision with some actual home improvements. A strong vision and an encouraging incentive can lead to some radical positive change. The new proposed program is intended to encourage and incentivize positive change like you see in these slides. We hope to help incentivize our community groups to trailblaze through public art, mosaics, pedestrian improvements, street art, pocket parks, parklets, and community gardens. And now with that, now for the name and details about the reimagined joint CIP program. I reveal to you the Fostering Unique Neighborhoods Grant Program, also known as the Fund Grant Program. This program will exist to empower our community groups, such as our HOAs, POAs, and recognized community groups, to revitalize and create unique places that reflect the distinct character of each neighborhood or area of commerce. These partnerships will promote economic development and workforce retention and attraction through the transformative power of placemaking, mobility, and beautification that will enhance the quality of life for the community. For the program goals, we have beautified Sugar Land's neighborhoods and areas of commerce with lasting public art installations, aesthetic improvements, promote economic development by creating places and quality of life improvements that help retain our workforce and attract new businesses, developing public spaces with community amenities, creating outdoor spaces with new mini parks and green spaces, preserving and celebrating the distinct character of our single-family neighborhoods, and innovating with transformative public projects that the city has never seen before. The funding mechanics of this grant will largely stay the same. Applicants can apply for a grant each year from the SL4B for up to 50% of the total project cost, up to a maximum of $75,000. All projects will be brought to the board for approval, and each applicant will enter into an agreement with the city to complete the project. What's new, the SL4B Community Development Project of the Year Award. This is a new addition, which will award a grant of up to $7,500 to a program participant who completes an exemplary trailblazing project. So each year, a staff committee will recommend award recipients to the SL4B board, and then the board will decide on the award winner. And the intent of this award is just to help tell the story about how our neighborhood groups and business associations are trailblazing. I think it'll be more impactful to offer a nice trophy, recognition, and a small additional reimbursement incentive for really amazing trailblazing projects. As for eligibility, this will be available to the same groups. The eligible project language has been expanded to include more types of projects that are eligible under the state statute for 4B dollars, and all projects must fall under the state statute and must be in one of these categories below: open space improvements, parks and rec, street and traffic improvements, site improvements, and art improvements accessible to the public. A new project minimum has been added of $10,000 to help ensure that larger projects are being incentivized and to make sure that we're not receiving too small of projects that take up a lot of board and staff time. And then also another change to the ineligible project list. We added standalone landscaping project as an ineligible project. Landscaping must accompany another eligible capital project. So, for example, if a neighborhood wanted to redevelop their entryway sign, they could also do landscaping, and that would be considered reimbursable and an eligible project because it's not standalone. However, this goes to say that the policy now allows for the SL4B to approve standalone landscaping projects in its discretion. For example, if a hurricane or a deep freeze occurred and the board wanted to reimburse standalone landscaping to help the community recover, then the board would be able to make that decision. Or if there's a trailblazing project that falls under standalone landscaping that the board really wants to approve, they have the discretion to do so. And then finally, we added some language that improvements that are not accessible to the general public, like clubhouse improvements and gated improvements, would not be eligible. Almost to the end here, let's talk about location criteria. One really big change here is to allow for projects that are adjacent to or readily visible from major thoroughfare, including minor collector roads. So the addition of minor collector roads. This is to help increase equitable outcomes by expanding the road criteria, encouraging more neighborhoods to apply, because some neighborhoods have a harder time applying for the grant because they're not located next to a highway. Although some of those neighborhoods that are located on minor collector roads, those minor collector roads can see up to 7,000 cars a day. So there can be a real economic benefit to the quality of life through these projects. And then I think there will be more opportunities to implement community development projects that make sense. For example, it might not make sense to implement a pocket park or a parklet next to a highway, but it might make more sense to do that on a minor collector road. So expanding that will help there. As for next steps, grant applications would be heavily marketed to our HOAs, POAs, and recognized community groups, and open on October 1st and stay open for approximately 2 months. The applications would then go to the SL4B board in December. And with that, I'll take any questions at this time.
Questions, Suzanne?
Thank you. First of all, John, this is really, really great, because we put a lot of money in big capital projects, but to see them in these smaller ones is fantastic. And my question is twofold. Can you explain a little bit about 4B funding? Because I don't know if everybody understands where that money actually comes from, and we want to make sure people know it's not ad valorem tax. And secondly, how do residents know where to find information to start gathering applications and getting more information on this?
Perfect. This is a fantastic question. Let me go back to some pictures right here. So a lot of these improvements that you see here were funded by the Sugar Land 4B Corporation. It is a 4B economic development corporation. Many cities in Texas have an economic development corporation. We have both a 4A and a 4B. 4B dollars come from our sales tax collected through, for example, when you go buy something at a restaurant in town as a resident, or if you're a visitor buying something, when you pay that sales tax, a % of that sales tax goes towards the economic development corporations and can fund certain projects, such as the quality of life ones that you see here. The 4B Corporation, a lot of the ways that funding can be used, it funded things like improvements at Constellation Field, as well as like a lot of the quality of life improvements that you see through this program. And I think it's just a powerful example that our economic development corporations really do impact the quality of life of just normal residents here at the city, And so if you want to learn more about the Economic Development Corporation and more about how to apply for this grant program as an HOA, POA, or recognized community group, I've said that maybe 10 times already, you can go to sugarlandecodev.com, and if you're interested in the grant, put /fund/-grant. So.
Anyone else? John.
John, great things, obviously. We've seen them all come across, and they really enhance our city. Question about the $10,000 minimum.
Sure.
Does that mean that the HOA or POA has to spend $20,000
No, sir.
to get $10,000 back, or is it $10,000 and they get $5,000 back?
Your project has to have a total project cost of at least $10,000 to apply.
Okay. Follow up there. What percentage of these projects are less than $10,000? You said that it takes a lot of staff time. I'm just worried about smaller communities that don't have big projects, that don't want to. They have an $8,000 project. Now they don't qualify.
Mm-hmm. In the last 20 plus years of this program's existence, there's been about 8 projects that were less than $10,000. The lowest one being approximately $2,500. And so when considering the kind of the long application process, it has to go to the board a few times to get approved. We really thought that adding a minimum project cost there would really help, especially considering if you have a project of about $2,500 and you're only getting $1,200 from the city, it's a really small project. And so we
8 is a very small number. Thank you.
Right.
William.
Well, John, one of my questions was stolen just a moment, but that's okay. I always have a comment to make. One, where's your cowboy hat? Okay, the girls were here tonight. I had my hat, you didn't have your hat. Second thing is, I have personally seen the impact of your projects and your hard work at every HOA meeting and in our community, and I appreciate your consistency. Even when the Great Homes program the funding had ended, it was really kind of comical to me that you were promoting the Great Homes program the other night, and I'm thinking, well, there's no funding for that right now, and you are so adamant about these programs, and I see the impact in our city. So, and back to Nishad's question, if I may, I feel like if I go to the grocery store, I spend $10,000 nowadays. So it's hard to hit under that, I think, especially fixing up a community. But keep up the great work. Thank you.
I'm honored. Thank you.
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Kamali. Do I have a second? Second by Watley. You vote this time, please. Yeah. And it's 7-0. I guess that means everybody in the audience is waiting for this item.
Thank you.
Item number 7, workshop. 7A, review of and discussion on an update on the progress to redevelop the Imperial Char House and results of pre-development studies and work. We've got with us our own Devin Rodriguez, Director of Community Planning and Redevelopment, Vance Smith, the Director of Development for Puma, and Laura Carrera, AIA Partner in Urbano Architects. Welcome, Devin.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm going to kick this off and then kick it over to Vance and Laura for the majority of the presentation. But just a quick recap, we took a different approach to the Imperial redevelopment project back in December and announced to the community that we were going to be working on this project with Puma Development. A lot of times development projects don't see the light of day until a lot of these details are already worked out and they've got plans drawn up and ready to make those submittals to the city and get those approvals. So the community and all of you have come along for the ride with us while we've been developing this project and getting into the nitty-gritty details of engineering and architectural work. So we're going to showcase all of that work tonight. In January, you approved a reimbursement agreement, and we'll cover some of those costs at the end of what has been reimbursed to date. And so all of the work that is going to be shown to you today of all the nitty-gritty details of what will it take to redevelop the Imperial Char House is going to be covered in this presentation. And so with that, I'm going to kick it off to Laura, who is with Urbano Architects and is going to walk us through all of their hard work.
Welcome, Laura.
Good evening, Mayor Zimmerman and City Council members. It's such an honor to be here. I'm going to put a timer on my phone so I can stay on time. So I have a brief. So if I hit next, okay, great. So my name is Laura Carrera. I'm an architect, and I have spent my entire career working on historic buildings. I'm very passionate about it, and it truly has been an honor for myself and the team to work on this project for you all. So we're going to give you a glimpse into various aspects of the projects, and at the end, we'll leave it up for questions for you.
Laura, before you begin, I'm going to note that Councilmember Kamali recused himself. He's got a conflict of interest, so he will not be listening in on this presentation, nor will he be taking any action on this presentation until later. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so first we're going to dive into the historic district. So you all have, in 2017, there was the Imperial Sugar Company Refinery Historic District, officially, right, acknowledged by the National Park Service. And so we're going to give you a glimpse of a historic preservation master plan effort where we looked at each one of the existing buildings, remaining buildings on the site. And so basically the main goals of this historic preservation master plan was to look at the existing conditions. was to look at the character-defining features of all the buildings that are remaining, right? They all have their very unique character. They come from very different decades. And so we dove into, thanks to the Sugarland Heritage Foundation, who has an amazing archival for us, we were able to utilize that, and thanks to the economic development, we were able to go back in time and truly dive into the history from 1926, the Sanborn fire insurance maps, and you can see the development, and as the company grew, the number of buildings that were being added. So 1940, this is a 1958 insurance survey plan, and you can see in the red the historic district boundary. And as we go forward, 1973, there were many developments still building, right? The silos were not there in 1994, and now then they came in 1997. And so in 2023, this is today, right? And so we see we have a list of the resources, and some of them are considered contributing, meaning they were built during the area of significance, and some of them came towards the end, such as the silos and some of the canopies at the front. And so with that, we dove into looking at historical photographs to truly understand all the changes, all the additions, the Imperial Sugar signage. When did it come? The original signage that used to be, you can see it in the bottom middle, that used to be on site. And then these are from 1959 to 1960s. You can see the stacks that are at the top of the Char House. You can see the 3-bay warehouse. You can see the really beautiful, I think it's beautiful, previous canopy that used to be in front of the engineering building. And I'm going to show you a better photo. If you look at the top right, you can see how light that canopy used to be. And it really, truly didn't take away from the unique character of that building, which, interesting enough, it was designed by the chief engineer of the Imperial Sugar Company in 1952, just before the founding of the city of Sugarland. And then we continue. You can see a little bit of the progress. There's the container building where the Children's Museum was, and all the construction through the 1970s. So in the mid-1970s is when they began to construct those canopies. And this is in 1984 and 2006. Gerald Moorhead, who's in the audience, took some of these photos back in 2006. And wow, the site has really changed since then. And so another aspect that we looked at were the changes over time, as I mentioned earlier, right? So for every building right on the site. So this is the Char House. So you can see that in the late 1970s, they constructed an addition right on the southeast, and that's what relocated that Imperial Sugar signage to the front. Right, so those are all details that we learn because we think it's really, really important to understand the historical context and the significance of all these interventions that took place in order for us to make a really educated design proposal. And so now we're going to dive into the Char House and just give you an overview of all of the design considerations and where we are today. So really critical for us was to look at what's the style and the composition of the Char House. And if there is going to be an addition, how are we going to respect the character of the building and create something that's submissive and deals with some items that I'll mention here in a little bit. But basically you have the classical order, you have those stylized brackets at the top, you have those really small steel windows. You know, the story is that the north was left, the steel windows are still there in the north because they weren't facing the public eye. And so, you know, they didn't want to spend $1 million or so back in the day to upgrade those to the aluminum windows that you see in the south and the east and the west. So it's amazing because they left the original windows. And so now we have an idea, and they truly changed the character. If you look at that building and the photographs, it truly looks like a completely different building because it's 50% of it is windows. And so bringing those steel windows back, or those small steel lights, would just be fantastic to bring to restore the exterior. Oh, another fun fact, thanks to the Sugar Land Heritage Foundation, were archival drawings, dated from 1925 through 1941 that showed the equipment that used to just overtake that building. And Mr. Leon Eisenhower, yes, thank you. So I hope he's not listening. So he was really amazing enough to let us interview him, and he shared just amazing insights of the company, and just his history of his profession is just incredible. But we learned a lot about what it took to operate this building, and the simple fact that not many people actually were in the building itself, at a time. So there's more equipment than people. And so another really important fact about the site is the back, right? So as you know, we have the immense opportunity of the redevelopment of everything that's north of the Char House, but yet we have a historical canvas that serves as an opportunity. So it's really important in the master planning efforts, we're really embracing that history so we can highlight it. And reimagine, such like as an Imperial Plaza at the north, where you can see that historical canvas. Another important fact is that access to the Char House, right? So all those considerations of where are people going to come in. So the Char House itself doesn't have a main, many historic buildings have that main entry, right? The Char House doesn't have that because it was an industrial building. And so in the north, we have entries, right? So how are we going to come up with an entry point? We have to do it in a really careful manner. And then the other consideration that we looked at are all the columns that are inside. So, and you see the column bays. You have really narrow column bays on the north and the south. So why not embrace the wider column areas that come from the east and the west, and kind of create a moment that's a little bit more grand, from the east and the west, and then also taking advantage of the heights of the Char House. It's all different, varying heights. And so could we, for example, if we build an addition, take advantage of, in the first floor we have 19 feet ceilings. And so could we do a mid-level where we can put equipment in the addition? And so looking at truly understanding the existing conditions so we can find opportunities. And so that's what we've been doing. And then also bringing the building open. How can we open it to the public? What are the best opportunities on the building? So this is looking at retail at the first floor. We have in the fifth floor, we have this 22-foot ceiling floors, right? And it's, you just have 360 degrees of the entire, city, and it's really fantastic. So what an opportunity to really, this is a building for the public, to bring the public back and then bring them to the top and get them to experience those views. So we looked at those options, and this is just a section showing also utilizing the previous stacks as elevators. And could we, instead of taking prime real estate, could we use those stacks as elevators that go through the building? And so this is showing the public kind of access areas. And then this is showing the stacks, so bringing those back. And this is a proposed Char House without an addition. So you can see all that it takes to truly bring this high-rise building into a functional building of today, right? So restrooms, you have 2 means of egress. And so all those considerations are really what got us to head to another direction as well, to explore what does it take to do an addition. Well, there are many considerations, right? There's street visibility. You can see this building from miles away. So that's a really important aspect. In order to respect the historic integrity and the unique character of this building, we have to truly be submissive, as I had mentioned earlier. Bringing back that Imperial Sugar signage to its original location, And so the pink here just kind of shows like, well, we're really limited. We also have that suspended floor on the north. So what we did is we did a series of studies of where could we be the least intrusive for an addition. And the addition would need to be a high-rise addition, so we can put the MEP, the second means of egress, the stairs on that addition, and be as minimal. The intervention in the actual char house itself would be as minimal as possible. So we chose an area, as you can see over here, there in the yellow, where it's already bricked, right? And it's very subtle. And then it also materiality. So you can see the section on the right. That's really just saying if we propose brick all the way to the penthouse, to be able to provide a second means of egress to the bar, well, it's not a submissive. So maybe the penthouse needs to be lighter. So these are all just different considerations that we had to look at. Another important aspect is the transition piece. So what we call this a hyphen. And that's just really saying, like, how are we going to tell our future generation that this is an addition of 2023, 2024. And so we could do that really gently by proposing a subtle glass transition piece. And so that's what that is. And then this is a proposed char house typical floor with an addition in the back. You can see the elevators and the one means of egress in the char house and everything else in the addition. So these are views. We explored different materiality for the addition, and these are more schematic, but in the end, it needs to be complementary, but also very distinct of today. Another interesting consideration that we really enjoyed, and then the Park Service and the Texas Historical Commission also really liked, was how can we tell the history of all that equipment that used to live inside the char house? We have those existing drawings, so could we share that information in the back? And so they really like that. That's showing that equipment on the glass. And this is a view from the north. And this is at the rooftop bar. And now let's dive into the lobby design. So the lobby, we have very limited equipment left in the char house. In fact, we have one major moment. So we're going to relocate it into the lobby so we can walk in and kind of appreciate that equipment and what made these really innovative engineers, be able to do what they did right with the sugar. And so you would walk in and you would be able to see the equipment, and then you get to see the stacks, which the openings are already there from the third floor all the way up. So the moment is just kind of like providing a pretty neat kind of intervention that's working within the existing conditions. So this is a zoom in of the lobby, and we thought it would be really nice to celebrate. If the building is renovated by 2025, it'll be 100 years since the construction of the original building, and so why not celebrate that on one of the walls in the lobby? And then the other one, can we pay tribute to everybody who paved the way for the Imperial Sugar Company to happen, right? So that dates back to the natives, right, and those who worked the sugarcane fields, and all the innovative engineers who took that human labor and turned it into equipment, right? And so how can we tell all that story in the lobby? And so this is a view looking at that equipment with a timeline celebrating the 100 years of the construction, since the construction of the char house. This is another view from the elevators. So truly respecting the industrial character of the building itself, all the, the existing brick, the existing concrete. This is the 5th floor that I was talking about, where you have 22-foot ceilings. And this is at the bar. So at the bar in the penthouse, you actually have a mid-level that has these openings already. So what a really cool moment to celebrate and go up there and get a drink and views. Okay, so historic tax credits. So I'm going to give you just a quick glimpse. So we've submitted Part 1A, the evaluation of significance. And so this was a submission that was approved by the Texas Historical Commission, the Park Service. So that's done. Part 2B is the description of the rehabilitation. What are you planning to do and why? So in this process, we truly, all the design considerations that we walked you through, we presented that in a document, and we also shared with them different points of views. What is this building going to look like for people who arrive from that's where all those pink points are. And why are you building an addition? You truly have to justify to be able to get that approval, because we are eligible for historic tax credits, which is 25% of business franchise credits at the state level, and then 20% are income tax credits, right? So what an amazing opportunity, but we truly need to follow the Secretary of Interior standards, and really so justify. And then they really we submitted a preliminary design, and it was approved, and that included the addition, the equipment in the back, and bringing back the stacks. And and one more thing. So we haven't submitted the actual Part 2B. That's going to come when we issue 100% construction documents. And then, of course, Part 3C is the request for certification of completed work. And that happens at the end of construction, after substantial completion. And so we also went through a very rigorous contractor selection. And so E.E. Reed, who's here in the room, was selected, and it's been a pleasure working with them. We actually started on-site exploratory work because back in 2020, when we first did a condition assessment, we identified certain elements that needed to be looked at. And then when we brought in Terracon structural engineers, they also looked at even further, right? With the corrosion, how's the integrity of that suspended floor that's on between the 5th and the 6th floor that has, some significant cracks. And so we went through various on-site work with the help of E.E. Reed, and looked at, the amazing thing is, yes, we have original drawings, but they're 100 years, they're from 100 years ago. So have things shifted? How's the foundations, the pile caps? The geotech report, for example, noted, hey, there were buildings behind the Char House. So where you're placing your addition, there could be foundations. And so trying to mitigate those challenges prior to construction and to truly understand the best way to move forward. I'm going to hand it over to Vance Smith.
Thank you, Laura. Welcome, Vance.
City Council, thanks for having me. I'm Vance Smith with Puma Development. So on the screen here, just some of the key building metrics that I'll quickly run through. On the left, you see the building areas. We have 84,000 square feet of rentable space in the building. On level 1, our expectation is that it would include retail or food and beverage. Levels 2 and 3 are where we plan to put the cannon, which Mark has spoken about quite a bit in previous meetings. And levels 4 through 8 are where we would have commercial office space for lease. And then level 9, being the rooftop, is where we plan for a bar. I've included the load factor metric of about 1.25 on here. This is a key metric we look at in the leasability of buildings. This is the rentable area divided by the usable area of the building. So this is high. This is not ideal, but this is part of why we elected to add a building addition to the design of the building, because without that building addition, we have the common area of the building, such as the restrooms, the stairwells, elevators, eating up nearly a third of the usable space, and that load factor would be substantially higher. On the right side, you see our high-level cost summary. One thing I would like to make clear is there's a lot of information that has gone into this pricing. The land and building cost, we know what that is. The hard costs, Laura took you through a lot of the design work we've done. We've done multiple rounds of pricing from EE Reed, as well as other contractors initially. We feel pretty confident in the hard cost numbers along with our contingency based on where the project currently is. In soft costs, you have things like leasing commissions, interest carry, construction management fees, and then in tenant improvements are what they are. That's what we believe we need for tenant improvement allowances to lease the building. And then the contingency is based on for our historic tax credit investors at the state and federal level will be required to have 7.5% contingency on the hard costs. That's what we have, plus some additional contingency in there for soft costs. So with this, having gone through this summary, $59 million is a substantial amount of money for this project. It is not making it easy to achieve. However, we have some ideas. We're working through different types of structures on how do we actually get this project off the ground, even though it's such an expensive project. I mean, $59 million for 84,000 square feet. That's about $700 a foot. It's pretty unheard of. So, thanks.
Vance, before you go, what? So, given the capital cost, what kind of rents are you going to have to charge, and how is that going to be offset by the tax credits?
So, if tax credits were not involved,
if tax credits were not involved, it wouldn't work.
Right.
Period.
If tax credits were not involved and you're pricing the lease rates based on a yield on cost of 8.5, you're looking at lease rates of $60 a foot, which is completely unheard of.
Right.
The historic tax credits are going to be in the range of $12 to $14 million. Even with that, and even with the city's reimbursements, it's still going to be very challenging. We believe with rates in the mid-30s, we're looking at a break-even proposition for the project.
Can you get rates in the mid-30s?
We believe so. I mean, it's going to be incredible space. The building is amazing. Right. It's going to be one-of-a-kind space. I mean, you can't find anything like it. So, right. I mean, the fifth level, as Laura alluded to, is pretty spectacular. We'd love to have a restaurant on that fifth level. Mm-hmm. I don't know that we'll find the right restaurant who's bold enough to take a fifth story, but we'll see.
Okay. Questions, council members? William.
So to help us all understand,
we
go
have
ahead.
A couple of more slides.
Well, I'll wait.
Would you like
then.
me to finish that, or would you like to questions?
I can wait.
Why don't we? Yeah, why don't we go ahead and I thought you were finished, Devin. So why don't we go ahead and finish the presentation, and then we can open it.
Here's just a list of the team members on this project. I won't read them all, but we have a handful in attendance tonight who can answer more technical questions if they're asked. We have Rick Miles with Terracon, who's the structural engineer who specializes in historic buildings. David Ziebold with EE Reed is here, and then you've met Laura with Urbano Architects.
Okay, and here's just a short overview of our reimbursement agreement and the expenditures to date. So we had a few questions about this, and we thought that this was a good opportunity to provide this update. In January, y'all approved a reimbursement agreement of $5 million. That number's not correct. It's $2 million of it is up for pre-development type expenditures, and then the remaining amount is for construction of the Char House. And so you can see the different allotments there for architectural, historic tax credit, consultant, and civil engineering. To date, we have expended $979,682, and a lot of that work is what was showcased tonight in terms of all of the expenditures that went into coming to those conclusions, looking at what the structural integrity of the building is, what can we do about it, what are the alternatives that we need to consider, and that beginning of that historic tax credit submission process. And now we're more than happy to answer any questions.
William.
That's what you held me up for. If you could step back up, please. So a couple of things that struck my eye. Most people don't realize that I, for one, as a council member, this is my first presentation about this, and I'm very excited about it, just to hear about it, because of all the talk in the city. With that said, when you say $700 a foot, what is the norm? $700 sounds very expensive to me. What is the norm, if I may, on construction?
For a typical commercial office building, $450 a foot.
Wow. Okay, considerably different. And then I'm going to switch. It's Laura. May I? Laura, you presented a vision of the, and I don't know your terms, the elevator and stair shaft and all the utilities there as a separate structure behind the Char House. I thought it was rather creative that you chose glass and to differentiate it from the building, because for many, especially those that I've been talking to regularly, they love that old building. And I really appreciate you understanding that and trying to define the separation between the two. And my thought was, as you were presenting that, I'm thinking to myself, if she had made it the same brick, no one would ever know that it wasn't there in 1926 or whatever. So that was really creative. And I, for one, love the idea of the restaurants, as you can probably tell looking at me. Maybe not on the 5th floor if I have to use the stairs at some point. So anyhow, I just wanted to say thank you to that and clarify the $700. Thank you.
Carol.
Thank you. You said for break even, you need to get about mid-30s on the rent, and now is triple net on top of the mid-30s?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer.
Well, that Char House looks good. Where are the restrooms going to go again?
Yeah, so in the addition.
In the addition. Okay.
Yes.
With all the other construction that used to be around the Char House, can someone explain to me the types of instruments that we're going to use with evaluating the ground? Other foundations that may come into play is what you had talked about, and just, I'm interested in learning about how we evaluate the ground around the Char House.
Come along with us.
So Nino and Moore is the geotechnical engineering firm of record, and I think they've completed over almost...
Go ahead and identify yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Rick Miles with Terracon. I'm a structural engineer for the historic Char House portion of the project. And I don't think Nino and Moore is here, but I can speak to what they've done. Typically, over the entirety of the site, they've taken, I think, almost 50 borings of various depths where they look through... just develop a soil profile. And of course, with Laura's work and research as to the site, we have a good idea of what types of buildings were where. But most specifically, to answer your question, where the addition is planned to go, we did an exploratory soil scrape where we basically removed the slab and dug about 5 feet deep. And amazingly, we did not find remnants of any old foundation. That doesn't mean we won't, but right now it looks fairly clear in the area of the addition. The design firm for the addition part is Pinnacle Engineering. They're a new construction or new design firm, so they're more appropriate for that. They're aware of that potential, and they can work around it with their foundation design if they run into any obstructions.
Anyone else? Great, thank you. Devin?
Nothing further unless anybody else has any other questions.
Where do we go from here?
Next steps is that we're continuing to refine the plans. It's about at 75% is the construction drawings. We'll need to be making some decisions on whether we take certain steps with alternatives or with, Plan A or Plan B, and finish the submission process with the Historic Tax Credit Commission in order to move forward to next steps, which would be bringing forward the rest of the project as well as moving forward with the Char House.
Okay, so in layman's terms, because you got a lot of people here that are wondering when we're going to go to the final, when council's going to consider the final.
Sure. We need to consider some other alternatives in regards to the budget and really finalize the budget and next steps before moving forward with the submission process. So there are some alternatives that are being considered in terms of bringing that overall budget of the $59 million down. And so making some of those decisions that could impact the floor plate of the Char House. And so finalizing some of those pieces before the other details can be worked out and further submissions made. Right now we have very clear hard estimates on things, but how are we going to, whether we pursue those alternatives or not pursue those alternatives? Is it going to be 59 million? Is it going to be a little bit less because maybe there's some other alternatives that we might want to consider?
Okay, so we've approved the general plan.
Yes.
And the final development plan is what we're all waiting on. And it sounds like it's going to be 60 more days, maybe 90 more days before we see anything at council.
I would say that's
a
safe estimate.
Plan?
Yes.
Okay. Because I think that's a key. I think date, because folks here have been waiting for a while. We've had the general plan approved for quite a while now.
We've had it approved since March. It's only been March. There's been a lot of, I know everybody is very excited, and I appreciate the enthusiasm and the excitement. And we definitely appreciate all the hard work from all the consultants that have worked on the team, and especially Laura and Vance with Puma and Mark as well. But these things do take a little bit of time to work out some of these details, and you've heard about some of that work that has been done tonight. So like I said, nobody's ever come along with us on this process before, so I know everybody's patient. Please continue to be a little bit patient.
No, I just wanted to set the proper expectations so that, it sounds to me like we're not going, there's a lot of work that's been done. There's a lot of work to be done. In order to get the financing for the project, they've got to get the tax credits locked in. That's probably going to take, another 6-7 weeks.
We need to make decisions on those alternatives before we can finish with the submission, because that's what's going to be the final plan of what is the rehabilitation plan for the Char House. So we'll need to make those decisions before finalizing that part 2 of the historic tax credits.
Okay, but we shouldn't be seeing anything probably between the end of the year, the early part of next year is when we'll see something.
I think that is very safe, yes. I will work hard to surprise everybody.
I don't think it's up to your work. I think it's up to get a lot of people
We will work
you.
to surprise everybody.
Yeah, there you go.
I see we.
Okay. No, go ahead, Suzanne.
I have one question, and this really comes off of social media. I know there's been some concern about the state of the Char House at this point, and I think we know why we're not touching it or changing it. So would you mind explaining that, please?
I'm going to have Laura do that. I think this is particular to the windows.
So I just wanted to clarify, the Char House is in an amazing state in terms of its construction. Just having worked on many historic buildings, 100 years have gone by, and it's truly, the brick is just incredible. And so, yes, there are broken windows, but during this time of, actual work with architects and engineers, we're a big team, as Vance was showing. And so we're getting busy there, trying to not get ahead of ourselves before any kind of work happens on the Char House. I think would that cover it? Or did you? Yeah, sure.
So currently, Puma does not own the land yet. So we're limited in that capacity in what we can do. Once we close on the land, we'll be fairly close to construction. I think one thing we can do to alleviate some of the concerns is putting a construction fence up early to ensure that if a window is falling out due to high winds that no one's around it. If I were the current building owner, I think it would be hard to rationalize spending a substantial amount of money to deal with the broken windows when we believe the redeveloped Char House is coming soon down the road. I think at some point in time I saw estimates to mothball the Char House at like $3 million. That's a tough cost to rationalize.
Just to make it look good temporarily until we can get to the real construction.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone good? Thank y'all very much, Devin, Laura, Vance.
Thank you.
This time we're going to move to item number 8, City Council City Manager Reports. 8A, City Council Member Reports. William, I'm going to start with you.
Well, Mayor, we've had so many city council meetings lately. I don't know what we've said and haven't said. So I'm just going to use one because I stole it from Stewart. I attended the Colony Grant HOA, and I got to tell you, Stewart, a lot of people know you and they love you there. Second thing is, they had their meeting outside, and it was 104 when I got out of my truck. So God bless them, because there was well over 100 people at that meeting. So hats off, literally, to Colony Grant. I had a great time. It was a great little visit, and they were doing all kind of fun stuff. So it was a good time. Thank you.
Jennifer.
I had a very interesting and eye-opening tour of the City of Houston Crisis Intervention Team sites. I went with Officers Rodriguez and Lopez from Sugar Land and a rep from Texana, which is the mental health authority for Fort Bend County. And we visited their neuropsychiatric center, which is in the first 2 floors of Bentob Hospital. We went to their diversion center, which is the Harris Center, and their dispatch center. And it was quite remarkable, and we learned a lot of good new things, and hopefully we've developed a relationship there to get some really good strategies from what they've built. They have, when they go on calls, they do a co-responder with a law enforcement officer and a clinician, and they also have a rapid response that has 2 clinicians. So what that does is it frees up the time with the officers when they're doing other things. So that helps alleviate, the stress on the officers. So we learned a lot, and I really appreciated being there and the hospitality of the City of Houston. I was extremely impressed.
Thank you, Jennifer. Nashad.
Mayor, this weekend I participated in the U.S. Smiley Games, and there was a lot of Sugar Land residents that were in Dallas-Fort Worth and from all over the nation, and proud to say that our Sugar Land athletes did really well, and we're bringing back what they call the Legacy Trophy here to Sugar Land where it belongs, and it's been in Dallas for several years, so glad to bring it back home, and congratulations to all the athletes, and a big shout out to my daughter who won a gold medal with her ladies basketball team.
Very cool. Carol.
I attended the India Culture Center 50th Golden Jubilee Anniversary Celebration, so I got to break out one of my saris. And I went to Bikes and Brews at Brazos River Park, and staff did a great job on that, as usual. And I attended the Clements High School 40th birthday party. So go Rangers.
Stuart.
Mayor, I can't believe William stole my story, but I did spend the last week going to special council meetings.
Suzanne.
Okay, so this was my vacation week, so Mr. Watley and I were supposed to go off since like a few days, and then we had special council meetings. Thank you very much. And my mother-in-law, my sweet, sweet mother-in-law, who's 94, broke her hip. So we've been working on Mimi, and I want to thank Methodist. They did a fantastic job taking care of her. Now she's in rehab, so I probably don't think I'll have another report for a couple of weeks.
Well, for mine, I'm going to focus on the 4B. 4-H, I'm sorry, not 4B. 4-H out in Needville. Nancy and I attended that event. I was very, very impressed with Tiffany and Ethan. They were the seniors that won more or less the scholarship awards, but every one of those young people were very impressive. We're going to see them at the Fort Bend County Fair. Nancy and I look forward to participating in the auction, which we've done for the last 4 or 5 years. And we look forward to seeing all of y'all out there at the Fort Bend County Fair. Now we're going to move on to item number B, City Manager Report. Mike.
Yeah, Mayor, just wanted to thank the council for all those special meetings and canceling all of your plans. And then just personally welcome our new city secretary, Robin. It's great to see you back here, and you made a big impact the first time, and we're excited for a long, successful career this time. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, 7 o'clock. That's pretty easy.